We begin tonight in Markham, where one man is dead and two others in hospital after a fire broke out at a home in the area of Elgin Mills and Woodbine. Our Dale Manukduk is at the scene. And Dale, what do we know?
Yeah, Kelda, there's still a lot of damage to this home, damage to all levels of this townhouse on Pillar Rock Crescent. We'll show you inside the garage. You can see that there's still crews on scene here. They're monitoring for hot spots. That car inside the garage completely blown out. There's charred areas outside the exterior of this home. What we know is that just after noon at around 12:30, fire crews arrived on scene, and when they got here, there was a huge fire inside the garage. A neighbor across the street capturing some of that on video. Now, when crews arrived, there was a woman outside who had some injuries that she was treated for, but she also alerted crews that there was still somebody trapped inside.
Our crews made an aggressive interior attack and were quickly able to locate that resident, moved him to the exterior. Despite our crews doing everything we could, and York Region Paramedic Services also doing what they could, that resident succumbed to his injuries as a result of this fire.
Now, we're told that it's a 74-year-old man who died. You'll also notice, Calda, there are other homes that have been taped off that are part of this scene. They were evacuated as well. They're actually staying on a shelter bus around the corner. We spoke with Ronald Chang, one of the residents of one of these homes. He was home when it all went down. Have a listen.
And then I see the garage is smoking, and then a little flame by the car, and then all of a sudden the flame got bigger. The wife, she was just in shock. She was just saying, my husband. And then she had like black soot on her face.
So we do know that the biggest fire was inside the garage, but we don't know what the cause of that is yet. We do know that the fire marshal will be arriving on scene tomorrow. So until then, York Regional Police will be holding this scene. We do know, according to the fire chief, that there was working smoke alarms, and he says that likely allowed for the resident of the home to safely evacuate. So that woman is in hospital. We're also told that another woman of one of the neighboring homes was taken to the hospital as well with some smoke injuries, but one man dead from this fire here in Markham, Kelda.
All right, thanks so much, Dale. Our Dale Manukduk reporting in Markham tonight. A 15-year-old boy has been charged with second-degree murder after a suspicious death investigation in Vaughan. York police responded to a home on Commute Drive around 9:20 this morning. When officers arrived at the scene, they found a woman suffering from critical injuries. She was pronounced dead at the scene. Investigators say they are not looking for any additional suspects. The trial for two girls accused in the swarming death of Kenneth Lee continued today, with a witness of the incident taking the stand. A shelter worker who intervened in the attack testified to the Crown, describing the situation as a group of people huddled together around the 59-year-old, kicking, stomping, and spitting on him. She said once she pushed through the crowd, she saw the man's face covered in blood. The shelter worker said she confronted the group in a nearby stairwell after they walked away, and when she asked the group why they did that, they responded by cursing at her. The defense questioned the shelter worker on whether she saw any kind of weapon. She said she did not. They also asked if Lee looked like he was having a medical emergency. The witness responded she could only see he had blood on his face. The trial continues tomorrow with testimony from a paramedic who was at the scene. Victim impact statements were heard today in the sentencing hearing for a man who killed a 16-year-old at a TTC subway station in 2023. Gabriel Magalhaes was attacked at Keele Station while he was on his way home with a friend. According to an agreed statement of facts, the stabbing was unprovoked. In court today, the Crown read out a victim impact statement by Gabriel's mother that said, quote, "I feel that I failed my life. I failed the single most important job of my existence, to keep my son safe. Every cell in my body hurts. I am more than shattered." 22-year-old Jordan O'Brien Tobin pleaded guilty in November to second-degree murder, which is an automatic life sentence. It is now up to the trial's judge to decide on the time frame O'Brien Tobin is eligible to apply for parole. The defense is seeking a sentence of 10 to 14 years, while the Crown is asking for 16 to 18 years. Well, Donald Trump's tariff threat continues to be a main topic for all levels of government. Justin Trudeau met with the mayors of major Canadian cities today to discuss their role on Team Canada. The meeting comes a day after the Prime Minister met with the country's premiers. Kate McKenna has more.
The Prime Minister reiterated again today Canada's got a plan to stay resilient against Donald Trump's tariff threat.
We're doing more than just bracing ourselves.
He spoke to the mayors of Canada's big cities, who say they play an important role on Team Canada.
We are the engines of growth and innovation and opportunity. And at times, like these times of uncertainty, it is cities, not only the provinces and the federal government, but it is cities that must take action.
They're talking about diversifying trade and knocking down interprovincial trade barriers.
We're convening provincial and territorial leaders to do the vital work of breaking down the barriers that hamper interprovincial trade.
But the government won a 30-day tariff reprieve by promising to crack down on illegal drugs and migrants crossing the border, including a proposal to appoint a fentanyl czar sometime soon.
I see this person as a person building relationships with the United States, a person building relationships with Mexico, and I see this person as just a conduit where everything that's being done from a government, a federal government perspective, flows up to this person, who then is in a better position to brief the Prime Minister or Cabinet.
The fentanyl czar's role will be to help us integrate what is a whole of society challenge.
Some, including NDP leader Jagmeet Singh, question whether the border is what's really behind Trump's tariff threat.
What Trump, though, is really about, and it is very clear, he is about making Canada the 51st state. That is what he is about. He has made that very clear. We don't need to guess about what his intentions are. He has repeated it.
Canadian premiers are heading to Washington next week. They'll be meeting with American lawmakers and trying to convince them that tariffs are a bad idea. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Ottawa.
Toronto Mayor Olivia Chow was part of that big city mayors meeting today, participating virtually. For more on her priorities, let's bring in Sarah McMillan at Toronto City Hall. And Sarah, the U.S. tariff threat obviously front and center today at that meeting. What did Mayor Chow have to say?
Yeah, Kelda, so as you mentioned, Chow was attending the meeting virtually today, and she actually took a little bit of a break this morning in order to attend an arts-related funding announcement. And that is where I asked her about the discussions that were at that point ongoing. And she said that when it comes to U.S. relationship, the mayors were really focused on how to tackle what she called an economic attack. She talked about the importance of supporting local businesses, something we have, of course, been hearing an awful lot about this week. And she said that, having a unified approach and a Team Canada approach is really key.
We are always stronger together. When because we are different levels of government, and we provide ideas, it means we can be creative. It can be from the ground up. So yes, our Prime Minister and our premiers are having great ideas, talking about what to do to defend ourselves, to retaliate, but we too can have some ideas.
Now, in Ottawa today, representatives from the FCM Big City Mayors Caucus spoke with media, and they talked about the role that they want to play in this tariff response and discussed the trip they'll be taking to Washington next week. Here is FCM President Rebecca Bly.
Our intention is to join the delegation and ensure that we can reflect the importance of taking these tariffs seriously and how they can negatively impact not just Canadians but also Americans as well. Also leveraging our existing relationships with the mayors across the U.S. We have built bridges and will continue to leverage those relationships with our U.S. counterparts.
And Sarah, while the focus was on tariffs, there were other topics that was discussed at this meeting. Can you tell us more about those?
Yes, so some other things on the agenda as well, and Chow this morning talked about a few of them, one of them being the upcoming federal election. We will, of course, have an election certainly by the fall, but quite likely it could be sooner. And she said they were talking about, how to get the attention of the various parties and what they might want their kind of common unified message to be. She said that issues like jobs, the economy, affordability, safety, and housing were all front of center in that discussion. Another thing that was discussed today was talking about financial support support for municipalities. So discussing possible revenue streams, things like gas taxes, and possibly trying to get a cut of the sales tax. Municipalities obviously don't really have a lot of options when it comes to revenue. Their hands are kind of tied. So discussion there as well. Of course, like you said, front and center was a tariff discussion. That's the big one right now. But even amid all of that, other topics as well that are, important to municipalities.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, Sarah. Our Sarah McMillan at City Hall tonight. Turning our attention to the provincial election campaign. And while housing affordability remains top of mind for many in Ontario, the issue does seem to be on the back burner to Trump's tariff threat, raising concerns for some. Sean Jeffords has more.
The President of the United States and his threatened tariffs on Canadian goods have loomed large over Ontario's election. But some voters and experts worry that's meant important issues like the province's housing crisis have fallen behind. Toronto resident Heather Caswell says the high cost of rent and housing has her family feeling trapped.
That is just such a deterrent for us leaving or, expanding or changing or even career-wise, right? We want to sort of stay in our jobs and feel secure. So I feel like anyone who has an actual concrete costed plan on how to do that, and soon, they may have my vote, but I'm not seeing it.
We need to do more. That's why a re-elected PC government will build 1.5 million homes over the next 10 years.
That was Premier Doug Ford during the last provincial election. That promise requires tens of thousands of new homes to be built every year. And 2 years later, the government's numbers show they're falling behind. The PC's fall economic statement projected thousands less housing starts both last year and in the coming years. In 2024, it projected 6,600 less. That continues in 2025 with 5,800 less and 1,200 less in 2026. This building industry rep says the housing crisis has worsened because costs are making it hard to get projects off the ground. Interest rates, municipal development charges, and taxes are all contributing to the problem, he says.
One of them is you did see increasing interest rates, which affected consumer demand, and without that demand, the ability to build the homes was just not there.
TMU professor Murtaza Haider says too many building proposals are still getting bogged down in bureaucracy.
We have created mechanisms and processes that are now gridlocking us, and it's paralysis by analysis.
This housing advocate says whoever forms the next government should commit to using land it owns around transit sites, with 20 to 30% set aside for affordable housing.
Right now, the province for years has paid lip service to there'll be some future undefinable amount of affordability. Give me a number and we can help you get to that number.
The PCs have earmarked billions of dollars for housing infrastructure and fast-tracking zoning approvals, but haven't been able to keep up with their own target. Both the Ontario Liberals and Greens say they would scrap development charges for certain types of housing. Sean Jeffords, CBC News, Toronto.
The first ever white rhinoceros to be born in Canada has died. 45-year-old Shabula was born at the Toronto Zoo before being brought to the Granby Zoo in Quebec in 2012. Now, in the past decade, she suffered from arthritis and developed other health problems, including kidney failure. Her doctors say they tried to keep her comfortable for as long as possible, but it was finally time to say goodbye. The Toronto Wildlife Centre rescued a deer trapped in a Pickering wastewater facility last week.
So we've had a call about a deer that's ended up in a wastewater treatment plant. It actually fell into a settling tank of some sort. There's actually pools of water that are 30 feet deep, but then the way the system works, there's an overflow. And then the buck fortunately was able to find this overflow spot that actually was a shallow area.
The walls, however, were too high for the buck to jump out. Soaked with sewage and at risk of hypothermia, the team over at the center rushed over to help, safely immobilizing the deer, then moving him onto an evacuation board. Once they got the animal out of the facility, they were able to treat the deer and release it back into the wild. Canada Post has laid off dozens of managers in an attempt to save money after years of severe losses. No unionized workers were impacted by the job cuts, but talks to renegotiate their contracts are ongoing under what the Crown Corporation calls a critical financial situation. Brett Ruskin has those details.
These layoffs include 3 senior executives, including Canada Post's chief financial officer. Now, in addition to that, there was around 50 or so managers that were given their layoff notices this week. The majority of those layoffs coming in the Ottawa region, some in Toronto, some in Montreal, and some in other parts of the country as well. Now, a spokesperson for Canada Post saying this is part of a corporate-wide restructuring and that it's not going to affect any day-to-day operations at Canada Post, parcel delivery, letter delivery, things like that, because these positions were internal management roles. They continue on to say that they don't have an estimate yet as to how much money this will save for the Crown Corporation, but they do say that there will be no unionized positions affected by these layoffs. There was the strike that took place late last year from mid-November until around mid-December for about a month or so, with operations shut down. Since that time, union representatives for Canada Post as well as management for Canada Post have been attending government hearings. The latest update on those hearings, as they try to sort through negotiations, sort out a new contract for workers, is that we should have a report into that process by around May of this year. Brett Ruskin, CBC News, Halifax.
Welcome back. The NBA trade deadline has come and gone, and your Toronto Raptors were active in the trade market today, making a number of trades before that 3 p.m. cutoff. Greg Ross has been following it all. He joins us from the OVO Athletic Center. And Greg, a lot to recap. Give us the lowdown on all the big moves.
Well, Calder, the Raptors made 3 trades in the final hours before the deadline, including one significant move that could really have a big impact on the future of this team. The Raptors acquired 27-year-old Brandon Ingram from the New Orleans Pelicans. In exchange, the Raptors sending Bruce Bowen and Canadian Kelly Olynyk the other way, along with a first-round draft pick and a second-round pick. Ingram is averaging 22 points per game this season, although he hasn't played since early December because of an ankle injury. Ingram will become a free agent at the end of this season, but Aaron Rose with SI.com says he thinks the Raptors will certainly be looking to re-sign him.
I don't believe the Raptors would give up a first-round pick and then have Brandon Ingram leave in the summer. Now, they've gone 5 straight trade deadlines where they've acquired a player. They've given up a first-round pick in 4 straight trade deadlines, and they've always acquired a player. You can look at Emmanuel Quickly, you can look at Gary Trent Jr. years ago. They keep bringing these players in who are heading into free agency, but each time they re-sign them. So I think that they've done their due diligence and they're confident that they're going to be able to keep Brandon Ingram this summer and moving forward.
Now, it's not clear when Ingram will be able to return from that ankle injury, but that's also significant because right now, the Raptors currently have the 5th worst record in the league, and they're in a good position right now to get a high draft pick. Ingram will likely be a big improvement when he comes into the lineup. He certainly could help them get wins, but that would also likely weaken their chances of getting a high pick. In other moves, the Raptors traded Davion Mitchell to the Miami Heat in exchange for P.J. Tucker, a former Raptor, and they also get a second-round pick. I think really the second-round pick, the key to that move, taking on P.J. Tucker was really about taking on a bigger contract from the Miami Heat, who were also active at the deadline and needed to dump some salary. The Raptors also reportedly acquired James Wiseman and cash from the Indiana Pacers. Kelda?
All right, thanks so much for this, Greg. Greg Ross reporting from the OVO Center tonight. Snowy weather making for messy driving conditions today. Police saying there were many collisions across the city.
Then we've also had dozens of crashes already all across the GTA. Most of them are just minor fender benders, slip and slides, vehicles losing control, on-ramps and off-ramps, following too close and just getting themselves tangled up with other vehicles.
Police reminding people to do their part to keep the roads safe, including clearing off their cars completely, give plenty of space, and drive according to conditions. Colette is here with a look at the forecast. And Colette, definitely a messy morning commute for a lot of people. And there's more snow coming on the weekend.
Yes, we've got, we had the wintry mix kind of to deal with today. It's not really essentially over with. And then another system coming in. In time for your weekend. And we'll get to that in just a moment. But we still got to talk about the components still left behind by that system that moved through and brought some freezing drizzle and freezing rain into parts of Ontario. And also certainly some snowfall. So now now it's those winds, and those winds strong enough that where there's snow on the ground, it's blowing it around, reducing visibility, making for some slick roadways, winter weather travel advisories in place, and for some of those winds to gust to 80 kilometers an hour or so, or at least close to it, we have the special weather statement for a few areas too. And then, again, those winds, they are the culprit, driving snow squalls. So we get into some snow squall watches and some warnings there in the lee of Lake Huron and Georgian Bay up the Bruce Peninsula and through that area. But also this band of snow kind of coming right on through the city here as it's moving through and then passes through after midnight. So we get that burst of light snow, and then another band tomorrow as those winds change towards the northwest, and this one kind of right through Owen Sound, Barrie, Midland, through that area, stretching all the way towards Clarington. So again, areas that tend to get hit, getting hit again with those amounts, and I'll show you the totals. But for Toronto, I think we'll have at least some sunny breaks kind of early, or a mix of sun and cloud, and then getting into more cloud cover. It's just sort of variable through the day. We break back out of it towards the end of the day. That's what we mean by variable, those clouds really changing throughout. But becoming overcast into Saturday, and here we go. Now the model's kind of pushing the system a bit further south, also bringing it in a little sooner, so looking like perhaps Saturday afternoon and not so much into the evening, but maybe those totals won't be quite as high. I'm still putting about a 5 to 10 centimeter on it for the GTA. What you're seeing right here, this snowfall potential is just with the winds right now, so that's why areas like Barrie, it's just over 10 centimeters and just negligible for Oshawa and Toronto. Now let's add in the system on Saturday on top, so it means another, say, 8 to 10 centimeters for Barrie, but elsewhere we're looking at that 6 or perhaps 7 centimeters coming through the GTA. Temperatures falling to -8 by tomorrow morning and cooler elsewhere in those minus double digits, and then -3 and breezy for us tomorrow with some increasing cloudiness, and there's that system coming in for us on Saturday too.
We're still in the thick of winter, right?
Yeah,
so it goes.
And we're really going to see later next week some Arctic air coming back too, so we're getting all of it.
Thanks so much, Colette. That's all the time we have tonight. Thanks for watching. Have a good night, everyone.